Welcome, Sarah Crawford. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm stoked.
So Sarah, first of all, I want to say, well, you are a food blogger, a professional food photographer, you're an educator, you work with brands, with food brands, you maybe do a little restaurant work sometimes, but your main focus probably is now the courses that you offer through your site, which I think you've got like 4 or 5. There's a foodtography school, advanced foodtography. You've got an iPhone or smartphone course, which would be awesome for our students to have a look at sometime. And then what else is there?
We have a course all on restaurant photography, and then
That's right,
called the Style Edit, and it's all about styling and then editing what you make.
That's great because it comes in once a month, and I get to watch you make a salad or tacos or brownies, and that's been awesome. You know, it's not too much, it's not too overwhelming. It's just you. We see exactly your process. Okay, so let's back up. Let's back up a little bit. Back to when you were a little bean growing up in Boston. Maybe you had dreams. I think I remember you saying you wanted to be an anthropologist at one point.
Yeah.
But what happened? I know that your father is a photographer, but what happened? What was happening when you decided to start a food blog and try to become a real food photographer?
Yeah. So I basically, in high school, I started taking photography classes, and I just absolutely loved photography. Like it felt so right. It felt like what I wanted to do, but I also had no idea how I could turn it into a career. Like my ultimate goal was to be a National Geographic photographer, but there's only a handful of those in the world. So I really felt like I had to pivot and find something else that I could realistically do as a career. So I went to school for anthropology, and that's what I majored in. But I was finding that I really missed that creativity while I was in college. And so I started my blog really just as this creative outlet. And I decided to make it focused on baked goods because I was not a very good cook, and I really liked baking. So I just started photographing to have something creative to do. And then I did it pretty on and off throughout college. And then college ended. I had worked in the restaurant industry all throughout college, and I ended up just doing more in the restaurant industry after that. And after a year, I was just so tired and so burnt out. And so I just quit my job, and I had no idea what I was going to do. But I had this sort of like fleeting thought that was like, oh, wait, what about my blog? Like, could I make that a thing? And so that's sort of how it all started.
Okay, Sarah, for some reason my screen switched on me, which bums me out. Let's see if I can get back to you. Where?
Okay.
Oh dear, where did you go? There you are. Oh no, that's
Hi,
not.
I'm here.
Oh my gosh, this is.
You want me to do that again?
Let me just find you. Where are you? Oh, this is horrible.
Oh, it's so fine. Please. There's so many worse things.
Oh, there you are. Okay, so we're back. A video that I just recorded a few minutes ago had finished like processing and exporting, and then it just like kicked me into some other universe. So I'm back. Okay.
We can totally do that again if you want to start it over.
No, I think we're okay.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. All right. Sarah, so what are the main ways now that you earn income as a food photographer?
So we earn income through our courses, but I also have my blog, which earns me a good amount of income. And how I earn money through my blog is through sponsored posts. So partnering with companies that want to have their product be photographed in this like beautiful setting with a recipe that people can make, and then put out on Instagram. I also make money through ads on my blog. So partnering with third-party ad companies, I just install a code on my site and then they fill those ad spots with advertisers. And then also through freelance work. So I'll get a fair amount of work, still working with companies like food companies, but who don't necessarily need me to put a photo on my Instagram, put a recipe on my blog. They're just hiring me purely for the photography. Like I just had a deal this summer with two brands who they needed photos to do a complete website refresh. So there's really, I mean, there's a lot of money that's out there. And I think that's the thing that keeps surprising me in this industry is just how you can be this like one person in your house photographing, and you can make really good money.
Yes, and you are making good money. I know that your dog Tilly and your cats eat very well, and they're and they dress well, so they're doing fine. But you weren't always making a lot of money, and so how did you start putting yourself out there? Like, were you just taking pictures of muffins and thought, well, maybe I'll reach out to this flower company and see if they like this picture? Or, I mean, you had to start somewhere. So how did you start?
100%. I really exactly that. Like it's so important to put yourself out there. And I know that can be really scary at first because you feel like you have no idea what to talk about or like what you're supposed to be doing, like the idea in general of pitching yourself is awkward. But the way that I started to make money was by um, Instagram DMing a brand and asking if I could have their marketing contacts
Okay.
email address, and then emailing with the marketing person and saying, hey, like I'm a food photographer. This is what I do. Let me know if you want to do a recipe, if you need any photos for your own Instagram. And you kind of have to put it in their head, all the things that you could potentially help solve in terms of problems. And yeah, I mean, I would just email people all the time. Like I'm talking emailing 40 to 50 companies every month.
Yeah, I mean, I know one food photography teacher who says that she goes to the supermarket, once a month, and she'll just go down the aisles and there's just millions upon millions of brands that need photography, whether it's for packaging, for their website,
Yeah.
for some kind of advertising and promotional campaign that's seasonal. Also, you mentioned in our course that you could even take pictures for other food bloggers, if they don't have the time, if they've got like 3 kids running around and they just don't want to deal with the photography aspect, but they have these great recipes. Maybe you
Yeah.
could help them out, right?
Yeah. 100%. It's really crazy how many bloggers hate the photography aspect, but they still are successful enough that, they're able to pay for that. And I think too, that idea of going to the grocery store is like, absolutely. I do something very similar. I'll just go through my cabinets and
Mhm.
see what companies are out there. And I think too, um, the reason that influencing and these like food photography has become sort of like this cottage industry is because when you think about how to market food, um, doing graphic design does not really cut it. Doing illustration does not cut it. The way to market food is through photography. So brands and companies have been doing this for ages. But the crazy thing is that in doing so, you have to hire out a marketing team, and the marketing team will hire out a photographer who will have to find a space. And then there's so much that has to go into these big, more corporate shoots.
Mhm.
And they're so expensive. And I think one thing that we talk about in our courses is that like the money's there and the money's always been there. It's now shifting though, away from these bigger corporate shoots to individuals. Because even though, $1,000 is a lot of money to one person, that's nothing to a brand when they've had to pay $40,000 for
One
such a
day.
corporate shoot one day.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. I mean, we were talking yesterday to an editorial food photographer over at America's Test Kitchen. And so these are, and that's maybe even more of a small scale production than, a bigger magazine or a bigger
Mhm.
brand, but you have a whole team of people that goes into making this one shot or the shot list. But you, Sarah, you are the stylist, you're the
Yep.
art director, you're the creative director, you're the composer, you make your compositions. I know that you have an assistant now, and I think you may even have hired somebody recently to manage your social media. But in terms of your beautiful work that you put out, you are really wearing a lot of hats that,
Yeah.
and so keeping that money for your business, right?
Absolutely. And I mean, yes, I have people that help me now, but for 5 or 6 years even, I mean, I was doing it entirely on my own. To the point where I was sometimes, if I had to have some sort of like drizzle or dusting of something on my scene, like my toe would be pushing the shutter speed.
Oh,
I mean,
totally.
or
Yep.
the shutter button, literally. So it is really possible to do it on your own, but you're exactly right. I mean, like you are taking on so many hats. And I think one thing that we get asked a lot about in our master classes that we put out is we have people saying, I I don't know how to cook food, or like I don't know how to do the styling aspect, but I like want to be the photographer. And that's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you want to be able to get, those brand deals and be able to work in all these different capacities, you're going to have to learn to do more than just the photography aspect of it.
Right, right. And we're going to get to a little bit of that later, but let's have a little bit of fun. First of all, I think I saw you say that you were going to be putting in like a little studio in your house now, or like expanding your
Yeah.
kitchen. Or, I mean, you for years have been working out of your kitchen or a window in your living space, but are you now going to be having more of a designated space that you can sort of leave things and you don't have to like bring them in, set them up, and
Yeah.
then put them away? Yes. That's
Yeah,
exciting.
so we're signing a lease on a studio space. So it's, I mean, it's like 10 minutes away.
Oh,
Um, but I'm really excited because I think, shooting in your house can be hard. Like you're dealing with these windows that are this big, maybe. So being in the studio space, it has so much light. There's so much, I feel like, potential for um having different scenes and setups, and yeah, having that sort of separation between work and home, which can be really hard when you're in one space all the time.
oh yeah. And I don't know if you're going to be offering this space like for rent, but I have a photographer friend who 2 years ago, she asked me, do you think this would be something that people would, use? And I thought, well, yeah, maybe. But she went ahead and a year later and leased this space. And I've used it a couple times. And it is like, to me, the money worth spent renting it is so worth it because there's
Really.
just thousands of backgrounds and props and dishes, and the windows are beautiful, and it's just like going in and playing, and I've used that to also collaborate with other photographers. So I'm not sure if you're going to do that or if you're just going to be in there like every single day, all day
No,
long.
that is one of the things that we want to do with the space, because I mean, I'm always thinking about like, okay, well, if we're gonna add on this work or like this new aspect of things, is there a way where we can offset those costs? Because it's definitely, I mean, it's a big expense. But I'm planning on having us shoot in there, I don't know, like 1 or 2 days a week, and then renting it out. So renting it out to photographers, to, I'm hoping honestly, like just companies and individuals too. I
Yeah.
mean, there's so many people that just want to like shoot in a beautiful space now.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of potential. And so we're making it not only a space for food where we have a nice kitchen and a good setup in terms of lots of props and backgrounds to play around with, but we're also going to do like a living room area. So we could really have this very like multifaceted place that a lot of different types of people would want
You
to
could get married there.
yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Now, here's something else fun to talk about, Sarah. Over the years that I've known you, it's been about 3 years, I think. Yes.
Yeah.
I've seen you eating croissants in Paris. I've seen you eating pasta in Italy. I saw you in Greece, but I think that was for your honeymoon. Uh,
Yeah.
your job has offered you some really cool travel opportunities, has it not? And tell us about some of that and what are your favorite places?
Yeah, it absolutely has, and I miss that so much. I mean, it's I think one of the most fun and rewarding really aspects of my job. But yeah, I've been able to travel to France, Italy, to Israel, which
Oh,
is
that's
just
right.
incredible. And then also some really cool places around the US too. But basically, before coronavirus, all of these companies, not only do they do things like remotely with having photo or photographers photograph, but they also really like having the people who they work with be able to see what they do, where they do it. So I've just been so fortunate to be able to go to these places, see these products and these company and the people behind the companies in action, and just see these absolutely beautiful parts of the world. So that's been really, really amazing. And just, I mean, gosh, who doesn't want to eat pasta in Italy?
Yeah, exactly. And I'm sure maybe when you started all of this out, I'm sure that you had goals. Maybe you're a very goal-oriented person, but you might not have imagined that you would get paid to
No,
travel, to France to eat croissants and post
no,
about it, right?
no, not at all.
So
I
that's
mean,
very cool.
that's that's one of the coolest things about this industry, though. I mean, there's so many opportunities and uh, experiences that you don't even realize are out there. So there's just so much going on, and it is just so cool to be just this like little small part of that.
Yeah, yeah. And I should say for the record too that you were my first food photography teacher. And I was so inspired by, well, not only are you such a good example of someone who's been able to diversify their income, um, but just the sense of opportunity that you conveyed to us. I mean, as you know, I quit my job in the middle of that. It was weeks
Yeah.
of course, I'm like, I think I'll just quit my day job and see if I can do this too. I mean, I'm a little older than many of the students, so why not now? So thank you.
I am so glad you did though. And I think that brings up a really uh, important aspect of all this. And I think that this idea of taking the leap, right? Where it's so scary to think, okay, I'm gonna leave my job and my healthcare and this sense of sort of normalcy and expectation and knowing where your next paycheck's going to come from. I mean, really, but I think it's been just incredible to see all the people I know who have done that. It gives you this sense of sort of like, I mean, it lights a fire under your butt where you're like, okay, I got this. Like, I
Yeah.
have to do this. And
Yeah.
you don't really have that same fire when you're sort of like 1 foot over here and 1 foot over here. And I
Yeah.
don't know if you felt that when
Oh,
you decided.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Definitely, Sarah. Okay, let's talk about one thing I notice about you is that you seem to be having fun online. And if you're not, then your imposter is doing a very good job of seem like you're having fun. And I wonder, I know that this is just an extension of your personality. You have a playful, very sweet, playful nature. And you show a lot of like behind the scenes, like what real life is like. I mean, for example, I know you have a cat that eats arugula. I don't know if that's the black one, Bear. But I got, I just, is that a conscious choice that you made that like, you know what, I'm going to like, show myself in my yoga pants and my pajamas because that's what's going on today,
Yeah, absolutely. I think, showing yourself online is a weird thing because no matter what, like by virtue of what you're doing, you're choosing to put some things out there and then choosing to not show other things. But I think that the way that I have found people connect the most is when they see those more imperfect things. So I really do consciously try to be relatable and show funny things and show weird things and show sort of those like little sort of intricacies in life, like those small things, and make it so it's not just all perfect all the time.
right,
But definitely at the same time, there's this understanding um, throughout whatever I'm posting that ultimately I do provide a service for people, right? Like I do entertain being online. And so I definitely try to up that personality aspect of things, knowing that that's what people want to see, right? That like
right.
social media is kind of like this break from the real world in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
Um,
yes.
yeah, yeah.
Neat.
So
Because I mean, it is still an important part of your business to grow your following, right, on social media, and then direct people to your blog. And that's sort of one of the ways that your business model works. So it's good if you connect with more people. It's good if more people relate to you, right? Yeah.
mhm,
Okay.
totally. Yeah.
But, when I look at your feed for Broma Bakery, there's no, I mean, every once in a while, I just feel like posting like a disaster cake that I made just for the fun of it. 'Cause I'm a little off that way. But, your food and your photography, you teach us in the course how to curate a consistent, but not like overly rigid feed
Right.
where your photos look professional, and there's an alternation maybe in angles. You're very strategic about that. And so the actual photos of the food, are very, I wouldn't say serious by any means, but they are professional food photos for sure.
Mhm.
So that's,
Absolutely. I mean, I think you have to make a choice ultimately, sort of what you want to be known for.
mhm,
And I have found that the more professional that I make my photos look, the more opportunities I'm able to get as a result. Um, and I think that for people who want to turn food photography into a career, I mean, you have to show that you're a good food photographer. If you want to be an influencer and make it so your primary income and your primary goals are all about getting a large following, and just getting a ton of likes, then you can focus on more like iPhone shots and maybe more like real life things. I think it totally depends on what your goal is. But for me, I want to be paid for my photography.
right,
And so to do that, I have to make my food and my photos look the best they can.
right, exactly. Okay, good distinction there. Um, I wonder how long in general does it take you to shoot uh, something that you're going to put on, Instagram?
Mm,
Like, I know that it can vary wildly depending on if you're making, but you're working in mostly desserts. And let's just say, from the cooking of it, so that it could take more than a day,
yeah.
to composing, to doing the composition. And I'm not sure at this stage if you actually sketch out your compositions or if you just have, you have that rule of thirds in your head. It's just sealed into your brain. Or
Yeah.
the other, the golden spiral or the triangle,
Right.
whatever, and you just know where to put things. But I'm sure that you do spend some time, composing and moving things around. Then there's the shooting.
Mhm.
And then maybe we won't count the dishwashing, but dishwashing.
Yes.
So how long does it take?
Oh, it's my least favorite.
Because you're posting recipes on your blog all the
Yeah.
time. Yeah.
All the time. Yeah. So during like the busy season, so basically September to December, it's 3 to 4 times a week. And then throughout the rest of the year, it's 2 times a week. So it's quite a lot. Again, at this point, I'm really fortunate that I have someone helping me. But in terms of, let's say I wake up in the morning, I make some blondies at 9 a.m. I make them, I cool them a little bit, I cut them, I get them ready to shoot. I'm probably working on them from 9 to noon. And then of course I have to edit those photos. That'll usually take, I mean, at this point, editing, and at this point, everything that I do has gotten pretty routine. Like I know what to expect, but I'd say you should plan on at least 4 hours for every single thing you want to shoot. And so one thing that I do to really maximize my time is I'll do a prep day and then I'll do a shoot day. So I like being in the same headspace for a longer period of time rather than sort of bopping around. Okay, now I have to be on dishwasher mode. Now I have to be on, like, it's hard to have your brain be in all those different places. So what I'll do is like one day I'll prep 3 different things that I want to shoot. So if I want to do, let's say, blondies, a cake, and cookies, I will probably make the blondies from start to finish. I'll make the um, cake itself, like the layers of the cake, and then put that in the fridge. And then I'll make the cookie dough. And so I have everything as made as I can day before. Day of, I'll take the cake out and I'll frost it. Day of, blondies are ready to go. Day of, all I have to do is put the cookies in the oven. And that really helps because then you can really focus your time and your energy and your headspace on shooting.
Excellent, Sarah. Okay, well, let's say that we're just getting started, though, maybe photographing one thing, like
Sure.
like the dinner that we made, okay?
Yeah.
And we're using our phones. And I know that I started out sometimes I still am guilty of doing this because I don't like to waste food or give too, my husband is always like, you can't give that much food away. And I was like, what? What do you
Yeah.
eat 5 cakes? But I would just photograph what I made for dinner. And maybe I'd have a nice yellow light on. Maybe I'd be blocking the window light. But for our students who are just getting started and wanting to learn how to take better food photos on their phone, I know you have a whole course on this, but if you could sort of distill the main areas of improvement, what would move the needle forward the quickest for someone just getting started? What are those things?
Absolutely. So first of all, let's think about what a camera is. A camera is basically a box or a lens that lets in light. So one of the most important things you can do is make sure that when you're photographing in light that makes your food look really good. So in general, overhead lights, lights that come from a light bulb, those do not make your food look good.
Not
So
bueno.
no, no. So that is super important to make sure right before you shoot, turn off any lights that are sort of indoor lights and then go to a window. Being by a window is so, so important. I'm talking about like close to a window, within 1 to 3 feet. And that is just going to make such a big difference in the look and feel of your photo. So make sure, turn off overhead lights, go to a window. Next thing is, especially when you're shooting on your phone, you want to pay attention to your perspective. So your camera on your phone is a really wide lens. So if you've noticed, like when you put your phone up and you just like look around at the camera, it makes things look far away. And that's actually not ideal for food photography because we want our food to feel like up close and like it's almost coming through the screen.
Mhm.
So because of that, like with all those things combined, one of the best things you can do when you're shooting on a phone camera is you want to be directly overhead to your subject, because if you'll find that as you start tilting your phone this way, that your food starts to look wonky. It starts to look like a little
Like it's
distorted.
stretched.
Yes, totally. So staying overhead is really, really great. Now there's totally ways to work with those other angles, but just like a quick tip, if something's looking weird, go overhead.
Yeah.
And then I would say the last thing is that editing is so important. Editing is really like that's the look and feel of your photo. So familiarize yourself with different editing apps. I love Snapseed. Lightroom has a really good mobile version.
That's
Um,
what we're learning. We're learning with Lightroom. I
Great.
love how you can do under the color mix, you can manipulate every single,
Yes,
oftentimes
incredible.
when we're shooting in daylight, the whites might be kind of blue. So you could either set the custom white balance while you're shooting, or if you didn't do that, you can still try to fix it in post-production by changing the tint and the temperature and so forth. But you can also, you can just desaturate the blues all the way out of there, and make them really light. And so your photo looks light and bright.
Exactly. Did you learn that from me?
No,
Okay. But yes, Lightroom
of
is
course.
absolutely incredible. It's
Yeah.
really great.
Okay. Well, those are great tips. Now I have two more questions for you. I just wonder, every once in a while you'll post a recipe for a taco or a soup or something like that, but 95% of the time you're doing something sweet or baked. Is there a food that by now that you have to make, either you have to redo the recipe and reshoot it, or it's some awesome seasonal ingredient, but you're just like, this food has bedeviled me forever and I can't make it look good for whatever reason. Are there any foods that you just now say, you know what, I'm not going to do it?
I'm
No.
not gonna do it. Yeah, I would say like meat, just like, like salmon, ribs, steak, like, and that is so difficult,
Mm-hmm.
so hard. I mean, I will say, like doing like a whole roast chicken, I can handle that, but meat is just hard,
Mm-hmm.
so hard.
Good answer. Okay,
Yeah.
what about your favorite food to photograph, if you could even think of one or two?
Oh man. Ooh, ooh, ooh. You know, I don't do a lot of it, but I love photographing more like restaurant-y dishes. So dishes that have a lot of texture to them. So things like pasta or salads, things that just like are very beautifully plated. I think it is just so fun to work with those. Um, but yeah, of course I don't do a lot of that because I'm mostly doing baked goods.
Yeah, I
Um,
know exactly what you mean. I got my start photographing mostly for restaurants,
yeah,
and once COVID hit and I realized I was going to have to pivot a little bit or try some new things, I realized that I'd been spoiled because the chef makes the food look beautiful. The plates are usually great. I've had some nightmare experiences where I'm photographing on orange tables or the walls are yellow, but for the most part, the actual food, the way it's plated, it usually looks delicious. And when I got when I started trying to cook things in my own kitchen and photograph them, I really had to go back to the courses and focus on the composition and the styling. I mean, food styling is a whole another separate career apart from composition. Just there are certain foods that need help,
yeah,
artificial help.
yeah,
Like, you know,
absolutely.
yeah.
No, I mean it is really interesting though. It's like the 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 easiest way to take a good food photo is for the food itself to be beautiful. But
Yes.
sometimes the food is not beautiful. So that is exactly where composition starts to come in, and styling, and really, and I mean, even just like choosing good colors to put
Mhm.
around your food.
Yeah.
So I
So,
totally.
yeah, there's so much good stuff that goes into all this. Okay, lastly, I am curious to hear, Sarah, from you. What are some of your goals for the coming year? Or, it could be personal projects that you're working on. Maybe you want to learn Photoshop. I mean, I don't know. I know you're working on a studio, so
Yeah.
that's big enough. I mean, we could just stop right there. But is there anything else that are working on?
Yeah, the studio is a big one. I'm so excited about that, but it's so out of my wheelhouse. Like, I don't know how to reach out to contractors. I don't know how to do all that stuff. So that's going to be a big learning curve. But honestly, I'm doing so much that my goal for this year is really to slow down, and really get a little bit more of a work-life balance,
Mhm.
which is hard for me because I'm definitely a workaholic. But I want to make sure that in this next year I can just learn to let go of things a little bit more, and like let my team handle things. I've worked so hard to like build these really amazing businesses, and I want them to keep growing, but I think now's the time to just like be like, okay, where can I start to step back, and where can I let other people um, take the reins. So I know that's probably a little bit different than than a lot of other people's goals of, getting their businesses going more, and really expanding. But
No,
that's
but I
what
mean, I think it's transferable to so many things in life because goals don't have to be um, growing upwards, I mean,
yeah,
or they don't need to be, measured in volume, or they have to take into account one's, personal and mental and physical health and all those things, no matter what stage in life we're in, whether we're a student, just starting out our career, it's always so healthy to just, even if it's one day a week, take a step back and sort
mhm,
of see, like, are there things I can let go of? Am I trying to do too much? Am I spreading myself too thin? Am I going to burn out? And just, kind of being gentle, right?
totally. And that's exactly what I need. So
Good. Okay,
yeah.
so I'm pretty much done with my questions. So in that, on that note, maybe you should go draw yourself a bath and pour yourself a glass of champagne, call the kitties, maybe they'll join you.
Thank you. Well, thank
Yeah,
you so much. I really appreciate you asking me these questions and having me. And I hope this is helpful for your
oh,
students.
Sarah, it's been so helpful. And I just want to also acknowledge that you've been such a great role model and inspiration for me. And in some ways you're probably young enough to be my daughter, close, but you've really like played an important role in my life. And so thank you. And then for agreeing to be interviewed, it was like, I felt like, oh, I'm going to meet one of my teachers. This is incredible. So
Oh,
it's just
thank
an awesome day. So thank you for joining us.
No, of course. Thank you.
Okay, Sarah.